Okay, so I put on Facebook not that long ago that I wanted to do a group where people sent in questions and I would record it and we would do this question and chatting back and forth, super casual, so that I thought that if some people had questions, that everyone from the group could benefit from it. So lots of people put their hand up that they like the idea. And I know there are some other ideas with like a Google chat and all that stuff once a week, and those are some things that we can think about during, down the road. But right now, I just want to, if people have something that would be, about 20 minutes worth of questions, and then I can record and then post them so that we can all benefit from each other's questions. That's where I'm going to start with, anyways, with this little fun project. So the first person up that actually sent me a list of questions here is Julie. So everyone knows Julie, hopefully from the page. Say hi, Julie.
Hi.
Okay, so Julie's actually in Canada. She's freezing her butt off right now. So if everyone's complaining about how cold they are, she's further north in the wind, and where it gets dark at like 3:30 p.m. and dark till 8 a.m. So she's kicking ass out there. I remember what that was like when I was living there. So okay, so Julie sent me 7 questions, and of course I said, we're going to try and run through these, just really casually. So we're going to have a little conversation about this, and hopefully everyone gets a little something out of it. So go ahead, Julie. Ask your first question here.
Okay. So when I'm at the gym, I'll see some people doing their routine as a circuit. So, for example, I'll do my routine as 3 sets of 8 of one exercise before moving on to the next. Is one method better than the other?
So when you're strength training, because we're, when you see people doing circuit training, often that is their form of fitness. So they're going in there and they're going in for a workout. And what's different about what you're trying to accomplish is you're going in there as this is your strength building component of your training that week. So you already do, your swim, your bike, your run, your intervals. We're working on all the different energy systems, or what we're working on, at this time of the year as far as developing you as an athlete. So we're not going into the gym for more cardio or for it to be a heart rate type workout, where often when you see people doing circuit training, that's more, it's more of a workout that entails they're trying to get the heart rate a little bit up, and they're trying to go back and forth from one exercise to the next fairly quickly. When you're building strength, rest is important. So technique, form, tempo of the lift, and actually resting enough in between. So you want to think of it more like, so if we're doing max efforts on the bike, for instance, your recovery between needs to be very, very easy in order for you to achieve the effort every single time, right? And if you go too hard on your recovery, you're not going to achieve that maximal effort every single time we ask ourselves to do it. So strength training is like that. If we are going from one thing to the next, chances are somewhere our form's going to break down, maybe the tempo of the lift is going to break down, or the actual depth or technique of it, as well as how much you can actually lift. When you start to go circuit training, you have to bring the amount of weight that you're using down quite a bit. And our goal is to build strength. And to build strength, you need to be trying to push a little bit heavier every single time. Heavy for you, whatever heavy for you that day is. It could be 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 100 pounds. It's heavy for you for that day. But you need the rest in between in order to push the boundary of heavy to actually build strength.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Okay, I have my second question is, how do you drink water from a cup during a race?
Okay, I love this question because some of these, it's like we think, oh yeah, that everyone, we know how to do these things, and we take it for granted. So without having, how as you run up on an aid station, and it's usually those Dixie cups, right, or the paper cups.
Yeah.
And so, this if it's plastic cups, this isn't going to work. But most of them are always paper cups. So as you run up and you grab it around the top of the cup. And as you grab it, you pinch the top. So that what happens is you just end up having a little piece out the bottom of the top of the cup. And then you just, Some of it's, of course, going to go all over you, but for the most part, when you pinch the top of the cup, you're going to make that, what you're, the surface, the area that you're trying to drink out of, much, much smaller. And so then you'll get a lot more down that way versus if you just have a big, wide open mouth of a cup and throw it on your face, of course, most of it's going to go everywhere rather than in your mouth. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
Yeah,
so just pinch the top.
Yeah, pinch the top. That's just it. Pinch the top and keep running. And as you're running, of course, less is going to come flying out of there or go everywhere. And pinch the top and slug that down as quick as you can.
Okay, great. Okay, my third question. Why do I find treadmill running so much more difficult than running outside? I'm faster outside than on the treadmill at the same heart rate.
So I actually found this question quite interesting because this is different feedback than what a lot of athletes will find. Most people find the treadmill easier.
Right, and I know that, and I know I've met one other person who's like me who finds treadmill running more difficult, and that's why I wanted to ask this question.
So it really could be a matter of turnover. So when obviously if you can run faster and more efficiently and have better economy on the road, when you're running, your drive, in particular for you, your drive is quite good. So your posterior chain, your foot, your calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, so you're able to push off and be very efficient on the road. So for most people on the treadmill, if they find it harder, it's most often because their stride is lengthening out too much and they're bounding on the treadmill. When I say bounding, it's a different gait rather than, that high cadence where you're just as your foot lands underneath you, it's like hits the ground and moves, hits the ground and moves, right? There's as soon as it hits the treadmill, it comes up off of it again. So often, if you're really good at doing that on the road and you have a good feel for that, good rhythm with that, and then you hit the treadmill and all of a sudden you're taking these big bounding leaping steps because it's the treadmill, maybe that's why it's a little bit harder. And so I don't have really, honestly, an exact answer for you. It would be interesting for you to video yourself on the treadmill and send it to me, or when you're here in Tucson, because you're coming, in the next couple months, we have a look at you on the treadmill versus the road, and they can do that and see if there's something changing in your gait versus treadmill versus road. But typically it's that if you run on the road, at a higher cadence in a little bit shorter stride and your foot strike is right underneath you, and then you get on the treadmill and you're in this big long bounding gait, and you're maybe landing with your front foot out your front foot out in front of you a little more and having to pull your body over top of itself, that could be the issue.
Okay, that makes sense. That could very well be. I know sometimes when I'm running, I'll be looking at the gym and I'm looking in the mirror, and then I'll see my heart rate is going up higher, and then if I concentrate on pretending I'm outside, it's I think that's what I'm doing. It's like the foot is getting underneath the hip as opposed to sticking straight out, and my heart rate will decrease.
Yeah, so that could be it. It could just be need to shorten up the stride and bring your cadence up on the treadmill.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, my next question is, do you have any tips for stopping the brutal chafing from heart rate monitor straps? I use 2 Band-Aids underneath the strap in the middle of my chest. Is there a better way?
Right. So when I read that, I was like, my first reaction was, wow, I can't believe she gets Band-Aids to stick through a race. That's amazing. I need to find out what Band-Aid she uses. That was honestly my first thought, because I thought, wow, I have never had a piece of tape or a Band-Aid stick through a race ever in my entire life. And I used to have the worst chafing and blisters you can imagine when I raced. And so the best thing that I find for chafing and blisters actually in races is Aquaphor. Vaseline tends to clog the pores, and if it's a hot race or even really in any race, it's going to cause an issue with overheating and sweating. And so you want to stay away from Vaseline. And even those Body Glide products, they tend to clog the pores, and really those kind of disappear fairly quickly. Aquaphor tends to work really well. Doesn't clog the pores at all, and I found if I just put a ton of that on, I didn't get as much chafing. Now, in saying that, I think it's pretty hard to get through any Ironman with about a significant amount of chafing. I mean, I can't remember ever doing any long distance race without getting in the shower afterwards and just about, screaming bloody murder. So some of that is just accepting that that's part of the sport, that you're going to get in the shower or use the restroom the first time and just about cry because everything hurts so much. And so as far as under the strap, if the Band-Aids are working for you, I would say don't change what's not broken. You should post what kind of Band-Aids you use, because that's amazing. And then from there, I just recommend using Aquaphor.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'll pick up some of that Aquaphor.
Yep.
Okay, the next question. What are some of the things that you know now about triathlon that you wish you knew when you were a professional triathlete?
Yeah, man, we could talk for like 2 hours about that, to be honest, or probably days. So when you are here, and we can maybe record some of our sitting on the couch time, chatting time on this one.
Oh, that would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so, probably, I would say my approach now is that I probably would have backed off at certain times a little bit more than what I did, like I think when you're in the thick of it, and that's why I'm always like a reminding, little voice on the outside, because I've been there before, and now I'm on the outside where I can, look in on that glass for everyone and have the big picture in mind. And I think sometimes, I was brought up under the system of you should always have a little bit of urgency. And so, I was always pushing. And I think, looking back, I think had I taken my time in some of the developmental phases a little bit more, I might have gotten a little bit more out of myself. In particular, like, for instance, obviously I have a lot of experience with helping athletes through injuries and illnesses and coming back, because I had to deal with a lot of injuries and illnesses. And I think maybe had I had someone tell me to back off at certain points a little sooner in my career, I might have not had quite so many severe injuries that sort of shortened my career on me. I might have been able to race a little bit longer and maybe run a little bit faster towards the end of my career had I just backed off a little earlier on and trusted that process. Not necessarily trusted that process a little more, just was a little bit different. The route that I took for that. So that would be number one on the list. When I read that question from you, I was like, man, we could really talk for days about this. But number one would be just being, definitely a little bit better understanding of when to, and be okay with backing off when it was needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
The next question. What is the purpose and strategy of using glucose tabs at the end of an iron distance race? If there are no calories in them, what purpose do they serve?
Okay, yeah, so that, so obviously when you're towards the back half of your marathon, say you got like 10, 12 kilometers to go, as we all know, often what happens is your stomach is so shut down that you're not really, if you can get calories in all the way to the end, because you definitely, even still in that last 10K, you're looking at, for most people still another hour of running, some less, but somewhere between, let's say, 30 minutes and an hour. Definitely not 30 minutes, but you know what I mean. So you definitely still need more calories. So if you can still do gel and Coke and all that stuff, great. But often what happens is by that point, you're not able to really absorb a whole lot of calories anymore. The stomach's had enough from the day of doing that. And so glucose tablets, and as you start to bonk, your brain starts to shut down and your blood sugar is dropping and you just start to slow down. I mean, that's why in a race, you say if you start to get moody and emotional and cranky, you probably need sugar, And so towards that last bit, that last 10K of the run, 12K of the run, if, you're just really, really lagging in energy, you're having a lot of trouble concentrating, lagging in energy, and you just can't get any more Coke, sports drink, and gels down because your stomach isn't accepting it anymore. Glucose tablets are a really good option. They're definitely not, they're not a replacement early on through the day. Because they don't have any calories. All they're going to do is bring your blood sugar back up. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so as you are starting to crash and you're starting to have a lot of negative thoughts and really slow down, your stomach is a mess. That's why Coke can be a real savior too. Some people just their stomachs can't tolerate Coke, but I've seen people in Hawaii, they can't get anything down. They're throwing up, throwing up, throwing up, and if they just start drinking Coke, it'll turn all that around and it'll keep you in the race. So that's why we talk a lot about nutrition. It's, we have our set nutrition plans and we've practiced in training and we know what works. But then there becomes, an element of understanding what's going on with your body enough to adjust on the fly. So it's like, okay, I can't, do I need to back off on the calories and have more water? Do I need salt? Do I need, do I just need some glucose tabs to bump my blood sugar back up and get back on calories when I can? These are all things that you need to be monitoring and making changes on the fly as you go.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're definitely not a replacement for calories. They're like a little kickstart as you go towards the end of the race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, and my last question is, after an iron distance race, the roof of my mouth is raw and painful for days afterwards. Why is this?
It's from all the sugar.
Oh, it is, eh?
Yeah.
It just eats the lining of your mouth.
Yep. So, you got to think about it. So in a normal day, we'd never eat that much sugar. And if you're having 300 calories an hour, which is pretty typical, some more, not too many people less, maybe in the run a little bit less of sugar for anywhere between 9.5 and, for some people up to 17 hours. Now, obviously, the longer your race is, the more you're going to start to turn to solids and stuff like that. But for the most part, for the bulk of people, we're racing between 9 hours and 14 hours, and you're having about 300 calories an hour of sugar. That's going to make your mouth raw. It's just 100% the sugar.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not an electrolyte issue. That's what I never knew. I never knew the answer to that.
No, so when you are an electrolyte, if you're trying to recognize an electrolyte issue while you're racing, here's what will happen is that you'll start to feel really cold. Like you'll get goosebumps. Not necessarily feel cold, but you'll get goosebumps if you're ever racing and you're like, man, it's a hot race or it's a pretty hot day. You're looking around. We lose our sense a little bit for the day when you're racing, but a trick I used to use is look at the people watching. So if people are standing around in, coats and, they have beanies on and they're freezing and you can tell you're like, oh, it's pretty cold out. I'm probably going to need some more calories and, I have an understanding of how cold it is out. On the other side, if it's, people are standing around and they've got like bikini tops on and hats on and they're drinking water and they look really hot, and you're running along and you're like, man, I have goosebumps and I don't feel hot at all. You need electrolytes because I could tell you that 99% of the time, not too long after those goosebumps, if you don't start to get some electrolytes into you, and particularly salt, and salt that you can taste, so like either chewing a salt tablet or, having direct salt in your mouth, you're probably going to cramp quite badly. So yeah, if you feel goosebumps, the raw mouth, that's just the sugar. The pounding of the crap that we put in our body through the day. Same reason you feel so bad the next day or have really bad guts. That's a part of Ironman racing. We accept that. We know it's probably not that great for our body to have that much sugar all day. So, but yeah, goosebumps, that's something to recognize and say, okay, I need some electrolytes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Marilyn. That's all the questions that I have.
That's awesome, Julie. This is so fun, and we did a good job. This is my first time doing this for our for our group, and we're at exactly right around 19 minutes. So that's nice. I said I wanted to keep it right around 20 minutes so that everyone had time to quickly listen to these questions, answers, and I'll be looking in the group for the next person. Whoever's up, just send me your list of questions, and hopefully we can do these kind of. Once every 3 weeks, once a month, I'll pick one person, their list of questions. We'll schedule a call, and hopefully everyone can benefit from these. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.